Hi, I want to start off by saying Black Lives Matter, and I'm pretty sure I don't need to go into the semantics in explaining what that means and why it's valid. I know if you're watching this, you don't live under a rock, and you have seen the news that is being circled around the world. We started with the brutal killing of George Floyd at the hands of a protector, which is not the first, but it's a trigger. And the reason it's a trigger is because it brought up all past traumas and stories, real stories of the gross negligence and lack of care for Black bodies. Multiple people in my space, the African space, came out speaking about the Western narrative and how it rules our lives, and how we need to know just as much, or if not more, about what's happening in our country and our continent, as we know about what happens in the West. I agree. But it would be ignorant of me to say that what happens in the US doesn't affect me, especially considering the fact that I have family members who are Black Americans, cousins, uncles, and aunts. I'd be lying if I said it's not hard to look at the news and hear that my family could be endangered. I may not be there, but it affects me. This then brought the brutal killing of Khosa to the surface, which then brought out stories of more people killed at the hands of the SANDF and the JMPD. Sibusiso Amos, Petros Migos, Adan Emmanuel. And these are just the names we know of that have happened during our COVID-19 lockdown. The sad reality of this is that the SANDF only have a large, violent presence in poor Black communities, but not in the wealthier, predominantly white suburbs. So even though it's not as literal as a white officer killing a Black man, it shows that there is still systematic inequality. In Lagos, 16-year-old Tina Ezekwe was shot and killed. In Zambia, 13-year-old Frank Mugala was shot in Lusaka. The other day, I was having a conversation with a friend about the African narrative versus the West, and we came to this conclusion. Empathy is what is felt. It is beyond painful to watch our people suffer. It takes a toll on your psyche, but at the same time, I have no idea what they're going through. Because in my country, my Blackness does not equate to guilty leading to death. Yes, colonization, apartheid, poverty, education gap, corruption are all things that plague the African continent in general. We experience segregation, constant racial slurs, but not to the degree of taking your life due to the assumption of being a criminal at the hand of a white man. So what am I saying? I'm saying Black Lives Matter. But when you say that, what Black lives are you speaking about? Because let's not forget about the xenophobia that plagues South Africa towards the predominantly Black foreign nationals. The same xenophobia that has left foreigners during the COVID-19 lockdown time without hope. Let's also not forget about the Black young men and women scarred in this country of ours by not being enough and having to educate our white counterparts on how to treat us as if humanity isn't enough. For those of us who went to predominantly white schools, played predominantly white sports, and had to defend our being there and take all these racially charged injustices when it came to our hair, our right to be seen in the sports, the fact that you, as a white counterpart in South Africa, have white privilege due to the history of this country and Africa at large. We are scarred, traumatized to say the least. When a white man came into my predominantly white space and calls out your privilege, and your white tears are enough to end the conversation in comparison to my Black wails that have been pouring to be heard. Quotas became an issue. Why don't I get it but the Black girl does? Well, because if not for the quota, people like me are put to the side, and your team ends up just being white faces, not reflecting South Africa. Why in my school's history class we can't have a conversation and voice our opinion without your white guilt shutting down my perspective? Convenient. Why in a multilingual country, me speaking my mother tongue is thought to be offensive or gossip, while your tongue of choice rolls freely off your lips, no assumptions made? Why was my name so hard to pronounce or fathom that the next best thing was to strip me of it, either in constant mispronunciation or in nicknames that do not portray the true meaning of our carefully selected, well thought through, heavy in culture, and with beautiful definitions, African names. Why in a history class, watching a documentary on the struggle of black existence, you watch a black man being lynched without an emotion, but a dead animal shows up and you're ready to cry? Is my life worth less than an animal? It's gross that, yes, your private education was not meant to be for us, but those of us who are first generation to break into these spaces suffer your systematic injustice, and you don't want to hear it or be corrected. Instead, you continue to oppress us and our parents. And you know what's funny? We're always the ones to forgive. Let it slide, move, and continue to educate. Although we are coined angry, we are loving enough to continually teach what doesn't have to be taught to those who don't even care to listen. Enough is enough. Let's not allow our police force or military to throw bodies around for no reason. Let's not allow racial prejudice to continue. It starts at home and it can end or be put to rest at home. Let's not allow our African black brothers and sisters to not be enough in their home as well. Africa is one continent. Let's treat each other like that. It has to stop, but it doesn't stop by you posting on Instagram. Passive activism is necessary, but there is more you can do, because my skin color is not a trend. My stories are not put there for you to repost so you seem woke. Work on your mental, accept your privilege, and actively work towards justice and equity. Then go ahead and sign a petition. Donate not only to American and worldwide causes, but the organizations in South Africa and Africa. I will link them in the description. I want to end by saying, I'm proudly a black South African Cameroonian. It's a blessing and not a curse. My people are strong and generations of fighters. We create the culture. We shape it. The clothes you wear, the music you listen to, the men you date, the movies you celebrate. We are lovers and not fighters. We have been victimized, but we are victors. And no matter how long it takes, we will fight for what is right. Our culture is unique and beautiful. Being black is beautiful because it symbolizes honor. Beautiful because it's a symbol of hospitality. Beautiful because it's a symbol of a continent, our continent, Africa. Black is beautiful because of the strength seen in our men and women. Being black is one of my greatest gifts and my biggest pride.